right, we're in part 2 of our Chapter 7 quiz review, and we're going to be going over Standard 6B, which is elimination. Okay, so elimination, all it is you're trying to eliminate either X or Y, and the only way you can eliminate them is if they are the same number. So for example, in number 1 and number 2, X and X and Y, they don't have any pairs of same numbers. 2 and 3 doesn't match up, 4 and 5 doesn't match up. And you can kind of ignore the negative numbers. X and X, they do match up. 2 and 4 don't, but that's okay. 2 and 1 and 4 and 2. These don't match up, but this one does, making number 3 one of the easier problems that we can deal with. So for number 3, let's go ahead and zoom in here. For number 3, how would I get rid of the X? Would I get rid of the X by addition, or would I get rid of the X by subtraction? Yeah. So the idea here is if they are the same number, then subtract them. If you subtract them, you will get 0. Okay, it kind of looks like that. If they are opposite numbers, then you're going to add them, and you will get 0. So let's kind of make sense of this. In this situation, we have X and X, so if we subtract them, we're going to get 0. But in this case, we have to make sure to add parentheses so that we make sure to subtract all the way through. So we subtract the X's and get 0. We subtract the Y's, and we have to subtract the numbers here. So let's just make sure we did this correctly here. Negative 2 minus 4. Negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6 with the Y. And 12 minus negative 3. Negative negative makes a positive. So anytime you see negative negative, please think about it as plus. 12 plus 3 is 15. So my next step here is to divide by negative 6 to get Y by itself. Dividing both sides by negative 6, I'm going to get my answer. And this one's definitely going to be a decimal. So let's see what it is. 15 divided by negative 6.
The answer is negative 2.5.
So we get the answer of negative 2.5 as our answer for Y. Okay? Now after we find our answer for Y, we're going to need to plug it in or substitute it into one of these equations to solve for X. Now you can ask yourself, which of these two equations is easier to solve? The top one or the bottom? They both relatively are about the same. So in this situation, I'm just going to choose the top equation. So we have X, let me use this color here. X minus 2Y equals 12. And like we've practiced, we're going to go ahead and replace the Y with parentheses and write down negative 2.5. So that's going to give us X minus 2 times Y equals 12. Notice the Y replaced itself with the negative 2.5. Okay, here's a weird one. Negative negative. What's negative negative again? You're going to see this a lot. So it's going to be a positive. 2 times 2.5 will be a 5. So we get X plus 5 equals 12. Subtracting 5 to both sides will give me my answer of X equals 7. So the answer key, if it is printed for you as negative 7, the correct answer is positive 7, negative 2.5. And that would be our final answer, as we need to write X first and then Y. Okay, let's move on to a more difficult question, which is number 4. Okay, for number 4, we are going to try to get the numbers to be the same by multiplication. Now, since we have 2 and 1, how do you make a 1 into a 2? Or how do you make a 2 into a 4? This is a very good problem to go over here. Check this out. If I cut the top equation in half, I can get them to be the same. So that's one way to do this. There's many ways to do this. Every number is even, I can cut them in half. And that's actually probably the way I would prefer here. Instead of multiplying the bottom equation by 2, I can multiply the top equation by a half. What would that give me? Yeah, I only do this because of the even numbers. So distributing a half or cutting every number in half will give me 1x plus 2y equals 6. So right now I'm going to use these two equations right here, those two, to try to solve this. Okay? Notice, we talked about this a little earlier, is if they're the same number, you subtract. If they are opposite numbers, you're going to add. So to cross off the x's, I would need to add. Okay? And remember, if you did this a different way, let's see if we get the same answers. It should be the same answers if you did it correctly. So negative x plus x is 0. Negative 2 plus 2 is also 0. And 4 plus 6 equals 10. Is 0 equal to 10? No way. So we're going to say no solution as our answer. Okay? Remember, if it says 0 equals 0, that's when you're going to say infinitely many solutions. But if even if it says 5 equals 5 or 7 equals 7 or whatever number it is, negative 2, that would be infinitely many solutions. But in this case, we have two numbers that are not equal to each other, so that is not possible. So we're going to say no solution. Okay, let's go on to number 1 and number 2. Let's quickly do number 1 and number 2. Number 1 it's got a decimal in it. So you could just do decimal busters to get rid of the decimals, but in this case, I'm going to try something a little different, a little creative. How would I turn a 0.5 into a 3? Or if you want to get rid of the y's, you can multiply by 3 and 2. That's another trick we showed later. There's many ways to solve this, but my question for you is, how do you turn a 3, or how do you turn a 0.5 into a 3? In other words, what is 3 divided by 0.5?
The answer is 6.
Yeah, if we multiply by 6, you can actually turn a 0.5 into a 3. Let's see what happens when we multiply the bottom by 6 and leave the top equation as it is. Okay, so really quickly, I'm going to write the top equation again below. 3x plus 2y equals 6. It's the same equation. But the bottom equation, I'm going to multiply everything by 6. So 6 times 0.5 is 3x. 6 times 3 is 18. And 6 times negative 15, don't forget that negative, because that negative is key to our problem here. 6 times negative 15 would be negative 90. Again, this is one of many ways to try to solve the problem. But what did we do? We got our x's to be the same. So since the x's are the same, how would I make that 0? How could I cross that off? Yeah, I'm going to cross that off only by subtraction. So let's subtract these and see what we get. 3x minus 3x, bye-bye. 2 minus 18 is negative 16y. And let's hope I didn't make any mistakes. Let's do the tough one here. 6 minus negative 90. Actually, that's not too tough. 6 plus 90. Yeah, 2 negatives makes a positive, so 6 plus 90 happens to be 96. Okay, my numbers are kind of big here, so I'm hoping that 16 goes into 96. Let's see. Yeah, dividing both sides by negative 16. What is 96 divided by negative 16?
That would be negative 6.
Awesome. We got the answer. So the answer is y equals negative 6. Let's circle that because it's not our final answer. It's a step to get to the answer. Okay, now you decide which of these two equations is a little easier to work with, the top equation or the bottom equation, because we need to solve for x now. Yeah, so if you're looking at these two equations, or even this one right here, this new one, the one that is easiest to deal with is definitely going to be the top one. So I'm going to rewrite the top equation, and I'm going to carefully do my best, right? Because all we're doing here is we're trying to do our best to not make any mistakes when we solve this. We're going to go ahead and substitute -6 in parentheses for y. Okay, and I'm going to write the rest of the equation exactly the same as it was, except the y becomes -6, because that's what it is. Okay, let's see what we get. 3x, what's that? Yeah, 3x minus 12 equals 6. Let's solve it. How do we get x by itself? We do inverse operation. So the opposite of minus 12, let's add 12 before we divide by 3. Unless you wanted to do it that way. There's many ways to solve this. So we're going to get 3x equals 18. And if we divide both sides by 3, we're going to get x equals 6. 18 divided by 3 is 6. So final answer, if we write it as x comma y, please use parentheses. We get 6 comma -6 as our final answer. Okay, this is going to be the last problem that we're going to go over to prepare for our test. It's going to be number 2. Number 2 is one of those problems that once you learn the trick, you're going to never forget. Is how do you make these numbers the same if none of them go into each other? 4 doesn't go into 5, and 2 doesn't go into 3. I mean, yes, you could multiply by a decimal if you wanted to, but the trick is to ask yourself, do something here first. I'm going to multiply both equations. The trick is to ask yourself, what do 2 and 3 both go into? Or you can do the 4 and 5. What do 4 and 5 both go into? But we're not going to do those numbers. We're going to usually try to eliminate the x first. So what do 2 and 3 both go into? The smallest number? The least common multiple? Yeah, if I multiply the top by 3 and the bottom by 2, you're going to notice they both go into 6. Yeah, 2 goes into 6, 3 goes into 6, but 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 2 is 6. So essentially what you're doing is you're multiplying by the other number. If you do this every time even, you'll always get the answer. The thing is, if you look at these problems, there might be ways to multiply only one equation, or even multiply no equation, such as this. But in a situation like this, you're going to need to multiply both equations. So let's see what happens if we multiply the equation to get 6. So for the top equation, let's carefully do it. 6x plus, so 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4, good, 12. And 3 times 8 is, man, I don't want to make a mistake here because that would be the wrong answer. 8 times 3 gives us 24. Okay, let's do the same thing for the bottom equation by distributing the 2. For the bottom equation, we get 2 times 3. It's 6x. Again, we're multiplying by 2 here. 2 times -5 is -10. Don't forget the negative. And 2 times 12. Yeah, we multiply all the way across to get 24 as well. This one looks a little bit weird to me, but you might notice this might not be no solution. This might be something else. So in this situation, how do I get rid of the x's? We're going to use these two equations here. How do I eliminate x? Yeah, if I added them, 6x plus 6x is 12x. I don't want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and subtract the two equations together. So 6x minus 6x. Goodbye. 6x, you're gone. Okay, and then 12 minus -10. Don't make a mistake on this, please. 2 negatives, please. What is 2 negatives? 2 negatives, what is it? 12 minus -10. 12 plus 10, 22. Careful with those, right? I think we might still get the same answer here, but in the end, that would have been a mistake. Okay, so 24 minus 24 happens to be 0. And in this situation, I don't want anybody to say no solution once you get here, because 22 times something is 0. What is it? Yeah, if we divide both sides by 22, we're going to get our answer of, let's see. Just to prove it, I don't want to just say, oh, everything divided from 0 is 0, but what is 0 divided by 22?
The answer is 0.
What is 0 divided by 88?
It's 0.
What is 0 divided by 2?
The answer is 0.
Yeah, anything divided from 0 is 0. Except, let's see one thing. What is 0 divided by 0?
If nothing is divided by nothing, then there's nothing to divide, or divide it with, and the division never happened. So my answer is no.
That's the only one that's a little weird, is if you divide 0 by 0. But 0 divided by anything is 0. So our answer here is 0 for y. Okay, so now you get to choose. You have 4 equations to plug in 0 into. And I think any of these equations you substitute 0 into, you'll get the same answer. And that's a great way to check your work as well, is choose one equation to plug 0 into, and you're going to get your answer. So just choosing the top equation here, or even cut that in half. All these numbers are even. You can cut that in half and get the answer a lot quicker. But if I plug in 0 here, 4 times 0, bye-bye, right? We're going to get 2x plus 0 equals 8. So 2x equals 8, and if I divide both sides by 2, we get our answer of x equals 4. So I'm hoping in this video I did not make any mistakes. I am going to check my answer key really quickly on the back to see if everything matched up. But the final answer there should be 4, 0. Let's check. Yeah, for number 1, the correct answer was 6, -6. That was good. For number 2, the answer was 4, 0. That's good. For number 3, the answer, remember the answer key might be incorrect for the paper you have in front of you. The correct answer was...
Good afternoon. The time is now...
Sorry about that. That was the announcement, the 4 o'clock announcement. So if I am checking my answers, number 3, the answer was 7, -2.5, not -7. And then the answer for number 4 was no solution. Okay? So that wraps up Standard 6B. Good luck, everybody. Remember, how easy is it to make a mistake on negatives? It is pretty easy, unless you remember. The key thing is make your life easier. If you have 2 negatives, please turn it into a positive. All right, have a great rest of your day. Stay positive and have a good one.